when you focus something like that, where maybe 100,000 people a week see what we're about to do, you know, overseas and also in Bali, and it's like a funnel, and it kind of comes down. So what is finally left, the drops, that it's a concentrated form. So the people there are going to be interested in that topic. There may be a leader, an innovator, a pioneer themselves. So then what most people miss in there, I've had 5 people I can mention right now who have found their business partners, their collaborators, by coming to the show in the episodes of interest and just hanging out with the audience. What is it about Bali, you know, that attracts people, that attracts so many foreigners and tourists and people that want to move or live or set up business here?
Yeah.
It's the culture.
Welcome to a new episode of Business Meets Life. We're live here in Bali meeting amazing Robert Ian Bonnick. How are you today?
Hi, very well. Thank you very much. Happy to be here. Looking forward to sitting down and having a chat with you.
Thank you. So last night, my first event ever in Bali, I went to SpeakuP Monday.
Yeah.
So every Monday, Rob is actually hosting it live here in Bali, as well as online on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, his SpeakuP Monday talk. It was impressive. You have about more than 450 episodes already. How did you get this started? This is amazing.
Yeah. So SpeakuP Monday is it's a talk show that was a passion that became an obsession, right? And background, grew up in children's homes in London for about 17, 18 years. And by the age of 12, I figured out why I'm here, right? Which was, you know, it was a racist attack that left me humiliated, upset, and all these other things that go along with that. And on the third day of being upset and so on, and wanting revenge, right? I realized that I studied 6 months prior in history, the 100 Years' War, which is in Palestine. And it wasn't the same people fighting. It was something that people passed on from generation to generation to generation. So in that moment, on the third day, what I realized was that I had a choice to make. I could either find that guy and get my revenge, exact my revenge, but that would be part of the problem. Part of the solution is understanding that, again, people are, let's say, indoctrinated with different ideologies, and that's what is passed on. So how does that relate to SpeakuP Monday? So this thing of joining people together, different ideologies, backgrounds, ways of being, became the modus operandi for anything of value which I've ever done.
Wow.
And so SpeakuP Monday is an extension of that. There's 3 things at the core of it. People inspire people, unity and diversity, which is what we're talking about with the children's home, and entrepreneurship and social impact. So these are the 3 stones or the 3 legs that anything of value which I've ever done in my life have stood on. So that's why SpeakuP Monday was, and still is, a passion that became an obsession, which is this 460 episodes deep now, and, you know, 10 market sectors, talking to the leaders, the innovators, the disruptors, and the pioneers, right? And having this conversation about business, but also where they've come from, what is their background, why are they the way that they are, and what they can contribute to others, which are basically looking at them from maybe a low or a high. How can they emulate their success? So that's what SpeakuP Monday is about, and it became this award-winning show. Forbes Business Council have endorsed it. Here, the Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy of Indonesia endorses the work that we do, and lots of other private enterprises, like the largest accelerator in the world, the Founder Institute, of which I'm a mentor, endorse it. And then also Startup Grind, the largest startup community in the world as well, endorse it. Prem Sangeet is the head of the Bali chapter, and others. So that is what SpeakuP Monday is, and you walked in upon one of them. And I mean, how did it feel to you?
First of all, I got to say congratulations. I mean, I saw you had more than 1 million views online. it's just so impressive how from Bali you're reaching the whole world. And it takes a lot of discipline to do this every single Monday. I know this. I told you about my Monday morning motivation community. No excuses, whether it's COVID times or monsoon like we have it right now. So please keep it up. It's impressive. And how did it feel? I mean, your energy is captivating. When I moved in, I already felt like welcomed in the room. Everybody was just nice. There was a lot of diversity. And as you said, like that unity feeling. And you really made sure that this is about people connecting. Like even throughout the talk show, whether it was online or offline, hey, you should talk with this other person. Or you were saying like, you know, it would be the person sitting next to you. And then like while we were asking questions, you made points. See, you two have to connect further. And you two too. You were absolutely right. It was amazing.
It's interesting because Bali is an incredible place, and many things going on here. 7 ley lines of energy that go through, underpin it. Then you have the Balinese culture, which is almost like, you got one which is underpinning this energy, and then the one which is locking it in. So what's created is an atmosphere for healing, for rejuvenation, for rebirth. Like these are the 3 of the aspects that when you come to Bali, you will feel, and it relaxes your nervous system, and that's where the healing comes in. So what I've noticed is that over the years of doing all these different episodes with different people in different industries, is that like when you focus something like that, where maybe 100,000 people a week see what we're about to do, overseas and also in Bali, and it's like a funnel, and it kind of comes down. So what is finally left, the drops that filtered out at the bottom, it's a concentrated form. So the people there are going to be interested in that topic. There may be a leader, an innovator, a pioneer themselves. So then what most people miss is that in the audience, people come for the guests. But they stay for the audience, right? Because in there, I've had 5 people I can mention right now who have found their business partners, their collaborators by coming to the show in the episodes of interest and just hanging out with the audience, right? And then having that exchange afterwards, and then realizing, hey, you and I have this common ground and things that we can share, because I'm good at this and I realize that you're good at that. So let's come together, let's collaborate and create something else. So that's what happens a lot.
And that's a very good reminder. Although we do so much online, like I used to work for HP, and then with the merger and so on, at the end, I was with DXC Technology. And now going back in Germany, I went to visit some old colleagues the past few years, and the offices are not even existing anymore. People were all shifted to do everything online. It's nearly 100% online time. I mean, like home office. But we do still need this human-to-human interaction, these face-to-face events, which is a good reminder what you just said.
And I mean, look, this is what I love about this. I mean, it was Simon Sinek, right? About the brain. So if you cut and boom, so like a transverse section of the brain, let's say, if you look down 3 concentric circles, the outer layer, the rational mind, the inner 2, the limbic, where the feelings are. So when you ask someone, like, how do you make a decision? From which part of the brain do you make a decision? Quite often, it's a trick question, right? From the rational mind, but it's not true. For most people, you make an emotional decision, then you rationalize it. So, for example, if I was on a diet, I wanted to lose, 20 kilo, right? In a short period of time. And I know that it would take me 5 weeks of following X diet and not eating X foods. Maybe after 3 weeks, I'll say, you know what? I really want that chocolate, right? And it's like, well, I know that I shouldn't. It's not part of it, but I've been working so hard, I deserve the chocolate. So I've made an emotional decision. I want the chocolate. Then I've rationalized it. I've worked so hard that I deserve it. So how does that come into what we just said? It's a bit like this. The thing which I love about people, and it's the best thing and the other thing, is that we are attracted to people's energy. So the feeling of a person, again, in the world of speakers, right? You have the message and you have the messenger. So quite often we go for the message. Tony Robbins has a message, right? The message is this: you can create anything, you can be anything by reconfiguring how you think, the way your pathways, your neurons. If you can reconfigure this, you can create anything you want. But we often get attached to the messenger, right? I love Tony, and then sometimes when the messenger, right? Sometimes when the messenger lets us down because they have a human moment, we feel disappointed. But it's a message. So remember, going back to this way the way the brain is structured, what I love about having people there is because if we can create the right emotional set of circumstances where people feel comfortable to connect with each other, that's the feeling done. So now we can actually listen to the reasoning, to the actual factual, logical information. Whereas before we're all about feelings. We get that out of the way. Now we get down to the person. Now we can connect as human beings. So that's what I love about creating environments where you can have people from different backgrounds, ideologies, like the children's home, right? Coming together. If you create the right environment, then people that should not like each other, according to certain parameters, should not get along, find ways to connect and find common ground. And this is how I feel that this is our contribution to reconnecting human beings.
That's an interesting point. And I know yesterday you spoke about like different philosophies in Indonesia. I want to tackle this very soon, but tell me a little bit more about how is business done in Bali? Because I have a feeling like yesterday you mentioned examples from agriculture and how you empower the new generation through different business models. Tell us some more examples. And I mean, you're growth strategist, so you must have worked on so many interesting projects.
Yeah. Great question. So it's like this. We work in 10 different market sectors. And the reason why is because SpeakuP Monday hits 10 different market sectors. The leaders, innovators, pioneers, changemakers. So by sitting down for an hour and a half and going deep, then you get a really good sense of where they're at, where their business is at, where their mindset is at, where their heart set is at, where their soul set is at. You get them as a human being, right? So into Indonesia. You have a place which is almost 300 million people. There are 700 plus cultures.
Wow.
500 plus languages. Wow. 17,000 plus islands.
I had no idea.
I know, right? The average age is around 27, right? Yeah.
27 is the average. Yeah. That's what we have in Shenzhen only.
Right?
Okay.
So why am I going to this? Because you asked about business. So to understand business, you have to understand what I've just said, because imagine, whichever region you find yourself in, there's a different culture, there's a different language, there's a different way of seeing the world. So if you're not able to adjust, then the impact that you're going to have is going to be reduced. Worst case, you're going to be so far off base that you're going to create a problem. Yeah. So the first thing about doing business here is, now Bali is one of the 17,000 plus islands, right?
Yeah.
Now Bali is a gateway to Indonesia for most foreigners, right? Because there's 5 different religions here that all coexist happily, right? The Balinese form of Hindu for most people, which is Balinese, is the predominant one. But what you have is a place where maybe 80% of the tourism comes through Bali.
Yes.
Yet it accounts for maybe less than 3% of GDP of Indonesia. So from a numbers point of view, financials, it's not the biggest contributor.
Yes.
Yet from a tourism standpoint, it's the largest contributor. So Bali, as a case in point to your question, how is business done here? Well, number one is that, come with good intentions, right? Bali, as what I mentioned to you before, of these different ley lines of energy, of the culture, creates this environment for, Eat, Pray, Love, right? What was filmed, right? There you go, based upon here. Now, I still haven't watched that movie, not all of it anyway, but the point I'm trying to make is that here, the kinetic energy is such that karma, if you want to call it that, happens pretty fast, right? So when I say come with good intentions, I mean it. Right? So come with good intentions. Now, one of the frameworks that I went through with you yesterday, there were those 3. So one we'll go with is Bhinneka Tunggal Ika. So Bhinneka Tunggal Ika. So the model of the country, of the nation, any country, it defines like the environment that comes through. It
Yes.
permeates, percolates through everything eventually. Unity and diversity, Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, that's what it means. So unity and diversity, number one. Number two, we spoke about Gotong Royong. So Gotong Royong is, like in South Africa, it would be Ubuntu, right?
Ah.
Yeah. But Gotong Royong is again, this is Indonesian, right? It is where the community comes together to solve a challenge or facing the community. Right? So Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, unity and diversity, one side of the coin. Other side of the coin, unity and diversity in action is Gotong Royong, the community coming together to solve a challenge facing the community. Now, in Bali, Tri Hita Karana, three roads to prosperity, harmony. This can be applied to anything and everything, but let's stick with business. So with business, how it can be applied is like this. So what is the impact of your business, your initiative, your project on top of the pyramid? Human to God.
Yeah.
Culture, customs, traditions, religion. Okay? How does it honor that? How does it impact that? Over here, human to the environment. So how does your project, business, initiative impact human to the environment? Regenerative systems, policies, and practices. How does it fare there? You can even give each one a score out of 10 if you wanted to, right? And the final part of it is human to human prosperity. So how does your business, project, initiative create prosperity for people? Human to human.
Yeah.
So now, if you can think of these three as a framework for business, conscious business, now you start to understand how it works and why certain things work and why certain things don't work.
Conscious business. It's interesting that you're mentioning this. When I did my double master's degree at Munich Business School,
Yeah,
my professor was one of the first people who started to teach about conscious business.
love it.
And I do leadership trainings myself, right? But I really feel like that the way how you speak, like leadership is, we still teach it very often like the traditional kind of way. And this conscious aspect is missing in most leadership and development programs.
Yeah.
So tell us more about conscious business and how we do this in Bali now.
Yeah. So that framework works really well. You know, when you can, because again, here it's a mystical island, Bali, right? And people, it's one of the top 3 most Googled destinations in the world, has been that way for the last 5-10 years, right? Yeah. And I mean, so what is it about Bali, that attracts people, that attracts so many foreigners and tourists and people that want to move or live or set up business here?
Yeah.
It's the culture, right? It's this, how does a place, that has this energy, create an environment for 5 different religions to all cohabit, but properly. So each one has a place on the calendar, right? Each one is honored. So when we had a cafe here, it was tricky because you've got all these members of staff. Some are Hindu, some are this, some are that, some are this, some are Muslim. So then when it comes to a holiday, if all are following the same, if they're all Balinese, for example, during one of the major holidays here, then you lose all your staff, right? So again, it's all about localization. Wherever you are in Indonesia, it's about localization. Now, conscious business, getting back to that one for you. Yeah, I mean, by employing that framework, human to God, human to the environment, human to human prosperity, and use it as a guiding system, and then give yourself points out of 10 for each one. Right. And again, it doesn't need to be 10 out of 10, but it's something which you know that you can improve over time. That's a great definition of a conscious business. Yeah.
Wow. Now, can you tell us a couple of examples of business models that are typical in Bali, more examples of that conscious business, how it's lived in businesses here? Because I remember yesterday we really gave some examples of different type of agriculture, like smart farming, and how this is done, and how like even the young generations are empowered. Because I feel like we need to hear these examples to get inspired, to think outside of the box of how we can maybe change our own business model to make it more conscious, for example.
Got it. So great. So yesterday we spoke about Jatilui, who is a client. Now Jatilui is a UNESCO World Heritage Site of Significance.
Oh,
Right?
I saw this on your LinkedIn.
Yeah. And they also just won Best Tourism Village in the World. And that was awarded by UNTO, which is United Nations Tourism Office. Okay. So why the UNESCO World Heritage Site of Significance? Because of the subak, which is the rice terraces, right? Beautiful, right? It's stunning, picturesque. If you haven't been, you need to go, right? It's a beautiful place.
Next time I come to Bali, then.
You gotta go, right? In Tabanan. And okay, so why are we working together? So one of the challenges facing not just Bali or just Indonesia, but also around the world is that food security. So what you have here in Bali, for example, is the average age of a farmer can be 60 years of age.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So the next generation, young generation coming up, the next ones don't necessarily want to be farmers.
Yeah.
Partially, there's a financial, they can create more income by taking a tourism job, by leaving the village and going to work, maybe in a larger area, not a city, but like a larger town, right? So, okay. So part of how we are facing that obstacle, that challenge, is by sourcing smart farming opportunities, right? Smart farming meaning how you can maximize your return from a parcel of land. Okay. So Astung Caraway. So Astung Caraway, you can find them on Instagram. So they do two things, really, really well. One, which is relevant now, is they have worked out how to, in some cases, triple the return from a parcel of land or farmland. Okay. So sourcing, bringing them into Jatilui. Now we're moving on to discussions to create a pilot. So therefore we find a farmer in that region that can then start to bring in the philosophies, the technologies, the approach to farming, in Jatilui to prove this case. Okay. That's one. Another thing we're doing there is, how do we increase the tourism assets in Jatilui? Right now, people come on a coach probably and, visit. The cameras are ready. They go out. They take lots of photos. Yeah. It's great. Then they may grab some food while they're there and then move on afterwards. If they're staying a bit longer, they might have a water purification ceremony and then leave. So that's around 2 to 3 hours. So how do we extend, that tourism asset? So one of the ways, again, let's go back to Astung Caraway, is, they also have a trail division. Now this trail division, it is like a walking trail that happens over a number of days. But what it does is, let's break it down into 3 areas. So one area is that, you start off in the chaos. Right. So Bali is going through this in some areas, going through this building boom, right? Yeah. Where there's villas and, and development happening, right? Yeah. And so walking on the road, you've got cars and traffic and it's chaotic. Yeah. So you start your trail there where you're walking and realize, wow, this is the impact as foreigners, as tourists, we can have upon an island, right? Yeah. Bringing this kind of development with us. Right. And then over the next number of days, we then begin to move into the nature. And as you move into the nature, then you learn about, okay, so what is the nature? Which plants can I subsist on? What are good for building houses? And so you learn about your environment, the nature, what it's useful for, and how it can become part of your world, part of your life. At the same time, as human beings, we kind of go from the same place of decision making. Usually it might be a bit chaotic. And then as we begin to go deeper into solving that challenge, we become more focused, more aware, and more targeted in finding that solution. And this is mirrored in doing this walk, this trail.
Wow.
So what this then becomes is that you then begin to attract a different kind of tourist. So instead of a tourist that might come to Bali to go to the beach clubs or to kind of hang out there, which it is what it is, right? I mean, I've done it, right? So I'm not looking up or down at this. I'm just saying what it is. So instead of that, or someone is maybe coming on a budget, right? And they're coming to backpack their way around. Again, it's great. Not looking down upon it, not looking up to it, but just saying what it is. But now with this kind of tourism, agro-tourism, what you're doing is that you're bringing someone who has 5, 8, 10 days to spare, who has the income to pay for that, right? Who has the awareness and the space in their head to take on that kind of journey, right? So that is an example there of, what a conscious business could look like from the agro-tourism perspective.
I love it. I'm definitely interested to try it out myself next time I come. So you are a growth strategist.
Yeah.
And I know you've mentioned that you help a lot of your clients and projects, not just to be run one time here in Bali or one time per year, but to make them like a yearly thing. And one of these big events you just had recently was the Ocean Days. Can you tell us a little bit more about those?
Sure.
And especially also, how do you make it from a one-time thing into a regular presence?
Got it. So, okay. So kind of going back to this, Gotong Royong, right? The community coming together to solve a challenge facing the community. So what we're really talking about is, I look at you and, double masters, right?
Yes.
Okay. So that you come with a certain energy, with a certain frequency, but also with very strong credentials in your chosen field. So if we gather like last night, right, when we had the talk, people there from different backgrounds. So each one brings something else. It's like you're creating, a recipe, right? It takes different ingredients to create a beautiful pasta dish. So the part which I play is an element within that. So being a growth strategist is an element within that. It's not the whole thing. Yes. It's an element of it, but the key part is how you bring together. So people call me, like if you remember Nokia connecting people.
Oh
yeah. So, yeah, remember that. So I'm like we're part Nokia here, like Mr. Nokia, which is connecting.
Mr. Nokia.
Yeah, connecting people and projects together for impact, right? So what does that mean? So, okay, so with growth strategy, I guess some common denominators. All right. So number one, it's about this. What is it that you want to achieve? Like where is it? Where's your goal? Where's your dream? How far is it? What's your wildest dream? Right. So we start there, and then we trace back to where you start. And then, like most business strategists and so on, it's like, right. So that's where we are now. This is where we want to go. Let's head towards there, but in a sequential order. Right? Let's work things through. The part where I differ, I believe, is that, so because of the show, SpeakuP Mondays in 10 different market sectors, there's a term called combinatory creativity.
I haven't heard of it.
Yeah. So it's similar to cross-pollination, right? But combinatory creativity is saying, well, there's 10 different market sectors here. Let's say there are 10 different silos, right? Now, if you're in one of those silos, let's say you're in agriculture. Now you're fully immersed in that silo because you need to be. You need to become the expert in your field.
Yeah.
So you completely immerse yourself with it. But you have no clue what's going on over here in the technology silo, right? And same thing. In this technology silo, you're completely immersed in technology because that's why you're there. Okay. So someone like me with combinated creativity is I understand and able to pull out the key elements of each of those silos, then cross-pollinate them in a solution that either hasn't been done before or is something which is just staring you in the face but still hasn't been done, right? So either. So when it comes to Bali Ocean Days, Bali Ocean Days is a phenomenal 2-day conference about all things to do with the ocean conservation, dealing with the challenges that the ocean, the blue economy, or our blue planet is facing.
Yes.
And, it's fantastic because it's an international an international conference for 2 days. The one we just had, 40 speakers from all over the world, from people like Ocean X, which Ocean Explorer, talking Ray Dalio, right, is the most advanced vessel on the ocean to do with, again, research vessel technology exploration.
Wow.
So we had the CEO, great guy called Vincent, right? So Vincent Pierabone, Italian. He was one of the speakers, right? So people of this caliber from all over the world, including in Indonesia. The biggest sponsor, so the Sky Blue Sea Foundation, is the ones who are behind it with Dharma One and Associates, who are my client, right? Great friends too. And Pertamina, through its new and sustainable division, is a major sponsor, as was Intercontinental Resort Bali, or Intercontinental Bali Resort. So what did I do? So I've done around about 2,500 events over the last 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
So those 2,500 events have attracted over 1 million people in person, from product launches, nightclub nights, name it, right? So what I bring to that is saying, right, so let's sit down and work out your lead up strategy. So how can we optimize that?
Yeah.
And this is what I was doing with the founders, right? So many different things to actually do there. I can get into details, but let's stay broad for now. Lead up strategy. Then on the 2 days themselves, leading from stage like a kind of master of ceremonies role. And again, most conferences that you go to are very kind of heavy on information, right? Now, as a person who's there taking it in, it can be difficult because there's so much information coming at you.
Definitely.
Right? Hard to stay present.
Yeah.
So as in my role of master of ceremony, being a speaker, a coach, and all the rest of that for many years, is that by injecting, as I mentioned before about Simon Sinek and the brain, rational mind, emotional mind, if you can connect with people emotionally first, then the rational mind opens up to listen. Right? Whereas if you do what most people do and try and hit them with facts and figures and then it's like, okay, for some they may retain it, but others are like, well, you've lost me. Right? Whereas if I connect with you emotionally first, now you have my interest. And if I keep on reconnecting with you emotionally, then you will stay connected.
And you're so good at that.
Thank you, my darling. Thank you.
From the first impression, I could see that.
Thank you. It takes one to know one. So that's what I was doing over 2 days from stage, tying the thing together, bringing it together, from announcing the speakers to breakout sessions, and how do you create an environment where people, that's the other thing, where a lot of the time, people that go to these sorts of events, they go by themselves or with their partner and they stay that way. So how can you create an environment where you can cross-pollinate? And the beautiful thing about Bali, which is, again, I'm from the UK and I grew up in Europe and so on. What makes Bali special is that, you can have very high profile people come here, but here you can make people feel so comfortable that you can have this informal conversation without the airs and graces, the bodyguards and security and so on, right? So by doing that over those 2 days, it was a phenomenal result.
Wow. But you basically mentioned it's not just a one-time thing, because we're talking about a successful conference now. How do you implement this into a 12-year cycle now?
Got it.
That is an ongoing thing.
Beautiful. So you have the lead up.
That's what you said. Yeah. You do a lot, right?
Yeah, that's right. So you have the lead up. Then you have the day or the days of the event, and then the follow up, follow on, and follow through. Follow up, follow on, and follow through. So if you break it down into those 3 categories, then okay, so the follow up is like, right, so people have come, how do I follow up with them? So how is your visit? Is it a questionnaire? Is it in person? Is it a dinner where I bring all the exhibitors together? We bring all the exhibitors together to sit down and to cross-pollinate and to talk and to unwind and to, kind of feedback on the event. All right. That's the follow up. The follow on is like, right. So how do we follow on? So then for this particular one, it's like follow on is creating, there was one there before, but recreating and repackaging a Bali Ocean Days podcast that then goes throughout the year.
Oh,
right?
nice. Yeah.
What else is in the follow on? Follow on can be, with another community which I set up. What we do once a month is meet up in a property of a different stakeholder, and each property is different for different reasons. It has different things going on. It's a different energy, right? So by implementing that within the Bali Ocean Days family, you have those who are doing incredible work when it comes to conservation. You have those who are doing some types of fish farming. You have those who are doing, some kind of activity on water purification. So there's so many different areas and segments. So how about we then go to their premise or their project with a bunch of people, some media as well. Let's go there and investigate and explore what it is they're doing firsthand. So now when you do that, a few things happen. Number one is that you see each other. Let's say we take a group of people. You see each other, right? And now people inspire people.
Yes.
Going back to SpeakuP Monday again, right?
You said it last night. One of the principles in Indonesia. Number 1, I see you. Number 2, I learn from you. And number 3, let's collaborate together. The community aspect again, right? That's what you were about to say?
Spot on, right?
I learned from you.
Yeah, right. So by this happening, and look, that's something which came out, right? It's not necessarily a done thing anywhere. I think it's done everywhere. It's just that I noticed that here, while I was here, it came to consciousness. So by doing this, then you're creating constant feedback loops. You're stimulating, creating conversations with people that probably wouldn't have been having those conversations, right? So that's the follow. So we're on follow up, follow on. Follow through now is saying, right, so what Sky Blue Sea is doing is, innovation pontoons are a way which the Indonesian Army have created. And this is now Yoko Darmawan, who is the director of Sky Blue Sea Foundation, right? And she's also the co-founder of Bali Ocean Days, right? The convention, along with Pascal Philippe, all right? So what she has organized is saying, right, the follow through is before this year is out and the next Bali Ocean Days 2026 comes, we're going to be doing this, and this. And this particular one, for example, is about these innovation pontoons, which again are cleaning the ocean, right? And on those 2 days, the Indonesian Army, thank you very much, brought one of these big pontoons so people can see it, right? Wow. So now what's going to happen is that one of the live visits will be going to see that in action. So by doing these things and by creating that community within it, now we start to create this roll-on effect. So we now have a once a month communication, a visit to a stakeholder's property. We have a podcast series, which can be, again, bi-monthly, can be once a month, twice a month, can be once every 2 months. But this one, I think, best once every 2 weeks. So now we have this going on. Then out of that, we have these other dinners and spin-off events that can be ticketed, that then involve aspects of the community in those different regions around Bali. Yeah. So now what we've done is that we've created this. I mean, I'll give you one other example. So another client is the only Oscar or Academy Award qualifying international film festival in Indonesia.
Wow.
Right? So it's called Bali International Film Festival, or Balinale.
Balinale, I like
right?
it.
Balinale for short. So Deborah Gabinetti is a founder. I work directly with her. So she spent the last 17 years putting on this incredible film festival, which attracts some of the best in the world. So I spoke about Eat, Pray, Love earlier on.
Yeah.
Well, through Balinale and the efforts of Deborah Gabinetti, that international blockbuster was brought to Bali and filmed in Bali through Balinale, right? And that created millions of dollars in tourism dollars, businesses, employment, and so on and so on and so on. I mean, if you think about, Lord of the Rings for New Zealand, that was the single largest employer of people ever in New Zealand.
Oh my gosh,
film.
Lord of the Rings.
Right? So just to give an example of the power of film. So Balinale attracts projects which can be shot in Bali. It attracts the best in the world. So Oscars, Juilliard School, which brings Harvard along with it. Now the Juilliard School is the most prestigious performing arts school in the world, and obviously the music scores that most people know that they've created, composed. You know,
I would never have thought about like Bali and like performing arts or so.
Isn't it fantastic? But remember, the average age of Indonesia is 27.
Yes.
So imagine now when you have because Indonesian are very, very good at creativity. You know, so imagine, you know, I mean, Bali, when you look at the handicrafts in Bali, you know, made by hand, think about that.
Yeah.
So therefore what you have now, imagine you have that thirst for film, for moving pictures, right? And you can now cross-pollinate that with some of the best in the world. Roland Joffe, who's obviously an Oscar-winning producer, director. You know, you can bring the likes of those people here to Bali, right?
True.
And now you can have these classes with the Juilliard School, bringing their element with Harvard, you know, bringing their elements here to help to educate. But remember, it's not a one-way street, it's a two-way street. Everything is cross-pollinating here, right? So I know this, you know this, let's put it together and create something very special. So these are the sorts of things. So with Balinale, it's a 1-year event. You know, so what we're looking to do now is to break it down and say, well, how is Cannes? How are things done in Cannes? Cannes is once a year, but throughout the year there are film activations going on. So here, what can we do? Is it, you know, partnering up with a large bank? As a sponsor, is it then empowering, you know, film throughout Indonesia by partnering up with a big cinema brand? So therefore, in each cinema now we can have activations going on throughout the year, which stimulate that brain. Is it the fact that now you can have educational programs which come throughout the year, which can then help to educate, cross-pollinate information, talent and so on with Indonesians here, right? Indonesians youth growing up. By the way, Indonesians have made some incredible movies. So it's not, again, it's this.
I'm
right?
learning so much.
Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, unity and diversity. Gotong Royong, the community coming together to solve a challenge facing the community. Trihita Karana, Balinese. Again, how do we, you know, give deference and respect to human to God, culture, customs, religion, tradition. How do we give to the environment regenerative systems, policies and practices, and how do we create prosperity between humans, human to human. So again, I'm just giving you an examples of how different business models can be brought into the conscious business ecosystem.
It's impressive. Like Bali really seems to be the place. You have some of the most amazing people and brains from literally all around the world.
All around the world.
I had no idea on like in how many different industries big things are happening here. Now, thanks for the summary again, because we've touched so many parts. Before we close this conversation, I'd love to ask you a couple more private questions.
Yeah, please.
I know you have an Indonesian wife.
And
you
kids.
have kids.
Yeah.
Whose Indonesian is way better than yours, as you said. I mean,
my 8 and 10-year-olds speak far better Indonesian than I do. I'm kind of embarrassed when people ask me, how long have you been here? And I say, especially if they're Indonesian, they ask me, you know, how long have you been here? I say, this long. And then they say, great. So you speak Bahasa, right? I'm like, So I'm kind of like, how long have you been here? For a little while.
Well, we can definitely, you definitely seem like you do speak the local language. But I'd love to hear a bit more on like, because you're involved in so many different projects. Every Monday, you have your talk show and you do so many things. How do you manage work and your private life to stay happy and successful? Because in the West, it's very obvious, and also in China, it's a lot of like hustling. There is no work-life balance, at least in China, compared to like maybe the West now. Like, how do you manage that?
Great question.
specific
Yeah.
habits or so, or
Yeah.
boundaries or rules? Because in Bali, I've
Yeah.
also learned people are more laid back or more with the flow
Yeah,
and
that's right.
less stressed out. But how do you do all of that?
Yeah.
Plus, be a good dad and husband and friend.
Yeah. Okay. So first things first, I'm a human being.
Oh, good to know.
I do some really great things, and I do some pretty bad things sometimes too. Meaning, as best as I try, I make mistakes as well, right? And I learn from it, and I move forward. So what I'm about to say is an opinion that has been formed over some years, right? And my true understanding is that we all have our own journey, our own, for want of a better term. And I'm not religious in this way, but we all have our own road to Mecca, right?
Yeah.
And so ultimately, it's maybe there's some things which I might bring up that might resonate, and if they do, then feel free to explore it. If not, then it's okay lah, right?
Sure.
So for me, it's as I kind of touched upon before, this whole living in the children's home, growing up in the children's home, my road to Mecca has been one of being, the only black kid at school for like the first 13 years of school. A black kid who thought he was white for many years, right? All these sorts of things. To going through my own trials and tribulations about, what the world thinks I should be, what the world makes me by looking at me, and so on. So all of these different types of challenges or obstacles that, again, as a beautiful woman, you have the same things in different ways, right?
Yeah.
So mine went through modeling. I used to model with Naomi Campbell, Evangelista, Herzegovina in Milan. I worked with Madonna, in 1998.
So diverse.
Went that. I became a coach, a speaker, an advisor, a business person. But I've always been a connector at heart. Right? A connector, like again, Nokia, connecting people and projects with purpose, right?
That's why we get along well, because I'm a bridge.
Yeah.
East and West.
Yeah, right?
You're the Nokia, yeah.
Yeah. So all of these things, I tried the outside world of if I looked a certain way, I would be happy. I tried that. It didn't really work. I did in Sydney, for 25 years, had a beautiful car and, growing up as a kid, BMW X5M, BMW was the sign you'd made it. And I got stuck in that trap as well. And, so my self-esteem was tied to material things, right? That didn't work either. At some point I turned inward and it became more of a spiritual journey. And this, through years, self-development, lots of courses that I'm sure you've done too, but lots of different self-development courses, healers, in different countries. I've always attracted these sorts of people in.
Yeah.
And so I became a relationship coach as well. So I understand, how the couple situation works through making huge mistakes again and again and again and again and again, right? So now what I'm about to say is the synthesis of all of these different experiences distilled into what I'm about to say. So one of the most powerful things which I've noticed is, what is your definition of success, right? And so a lot of the time through our wonderful devices, about to pick up my phone, we are pushed information. To be successful, you need to look like this, be like this, have this much, do like this, blah, 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 blah. And we fall for it. I don't mean that as a disservice, but I mean we literally do, right? We believe that is the way. We just helped a few people move to Bali from Sydney. Now they had everything, the house, the car, the white picket fence, but they weren't happy, right? So it's not in material things, but material things I love too, right?
Sure.
So I'm not saying, don't become a material thing. No, I love material things as well, but I know that my happiness is not in them. So my definition of success is, so long as I am in pursuit of a worthy ideal, which is going back to a guy who, you remember, Earl Nightingale back in the day, but I still believe what he said to be a truth for me as well. So if I'm in process of doing something which I enjoy, that's something which I love, which I believe to be my purpose, then happiness follows me. Right? So, okay, how do I put that down into reality? So, okay, we interviewed not this Monday, yesterday, but the Monday prior, a guy called Professor David, Spanish fellow, incredibly eminent at what he does. The topic was entitled How to Reverse Disease, right? How to reverse disease. Now, one of the biggest things that he noticed, and this is in clinical studies as well, and which he cited, but he noticed in his own practice, those people who are in pursuit of something that they love to do are happier than those who are not. Right? So just to reaffirm that point. So number one for me is that, am I doing something that I love? Am I fulfilling something which I feel is important? Right? That's number one. Number two is mastery. So I understand that, I'm not after perfection. I used to be. I used to think that perfection existed.
Yeah.
But I don't anymore. My feeling is mastery. So it's this slow but sure, step-by-step process of getting better at something. And sometimes it's like snakes and ladders, the game, where you're going really well and then you fall down a snake and you're like, oh my God, I'm back where I started. It's terrible. But what you may realize is that by going a few more steps on, there's a ladder that brings you up to further than you were before you fell.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean about mistakes. So mastery is another thing. The third thing for me is that I truly believe and understand, and sometimes I don't like this, but it doesn't negate the fact that I think it is true, is that life is trying to help you to get to the better version of you. And it's
constantly grow.
Yeah. And it's oftentimes through obstacles that appear in your way.
Yeah.
And again, I don't like obstacles. Right?
He does, right?
You know what I mean? So again, I'm a happy person. I smile a lot, but I don't like obstacles necessarily. But I do understand that they are a way for me to grow and a way for me to reach that better version of me. And it's an ongoing process of mastery. So whenever anything happens, what did I learn?
Look for the gifts.
Yeah. What did I learn? And this comes from Richard Harrington, richflix.com. Check it out. My South African.
Richflix.com?
Yeah, not Netflix, but
richflix.com.
Richard Harrington, right? And he was one who showed me Ubuntu. South African guy, beautiful man. So the second part, the first one is, what's the gift? What did I learn? Second one is, which quality was trying to be cultivated out of this experience? Which quality is trying to be cultivated out of this experience? Is it resilience? Is it knowledge? Is it, be a little bit more easygoing, Rob? Right? Is it empathy? Is it, hey, listen, brother, you need to get your SHIT in order, right? So one is that, as I mentioned. Number two is that, and number three is that thing of not being afraid to try it, not being afraid to do it, just do it, right? Not being afraid, and it may not work out, if you can take baby steps. So maybe you're not able to jump that quantum level, but maybe what is it that I can do every day to get me further towards that goal? What is it that
1% every day, right?
What is it that I can do? So before I go to sleep, I think of three things from the day before that I really enjoyed. It might be an interaction with my wife. It might be playing with my kids. It might be meeting you, which I'm really enjoying this. And I think you're an amazing person, right? So these are the things I remember before I go to sleep. When I wake up, Joe Dispenza, right? Yes. Which is, what can I place in my mind that gives me that smile before I get out of bed, before I open my eyes and I'm ready to hit the day running? What is it? Is it me visualizing what this day is going to be looking like, what I would have achieved, what I would have experienced going through that day, such as? So that is really powerful. And then, so they are the keys, right, to me. But this one is really about now, right? Meaning where we're going in the future. And this is stepping off from what we discussed last night, which I think is so important, which is, back in the day, whenever that day was, 5-10 years ago, if you and I were talking and let's say that, hey, we don't agree upon something, you state your mind, I state mine, they're like this, we're not going to meet, okay lah. We just say, you know what, on this, we've reached an impasse, right? Okay, let's talk about something else. Let's do something else. Okay, and we'll go about that and we'll do something else, right? Whereas what I find is that these days, for some people, which seems to be that's reported and pushed out most in the media, is this whole cancel culture, right? So if we don't get along in this topic, you're out of my phone, you're out of my life, right? You're done. You're dead to me, literally, right? So a guy, and I brought this up last night, John Meacham, Soul of America is a book. But the three things which I really enjoy, which I've always been doing somehow but didn't realize it, was that number one, if I meet someone who I have an opposing viewpoint with, the first thing is I need to get out of my head, right? Get out of my righteousness, right? I'm right, they're wrong. And by how do I do that? I can do that by saying, you know what? Let me ask some questions.
Be curious.
Be curious. It's curiosity. Thank you. I forgot last night, but you reminded me. Thank you very much. Curiosity. So it's what happened to this person in their lives for them to hold the viewpoint they do so strongly, right? And a few questions which, anyone can answer. Questions could be, such as, growing up as a kid, what was the hardest thing you had to deal with? Growing up as a kid, like what thing do you think impacted you the most negatively? Growing up as a kid, what thing or things impacted you most positively? Those three questions alone will open up something.
Yeah,
right?
You'll have a different connection, some emotions. Yeah. It's also not just being rational.
Yeah. And listen, right? There's three types of listening, right? Listening to interrupt, which you haven't done today, right? Listening to interrupt, yes, I think, right? Listening while multitasking or feigning listening, but yeah, that's very nice. Oh yeah, well, I think this, right? The third type is active listening, right? I'm listening to what you're saying and what you're not saying, Questioning, nodding, right? Summarizing, like, we're here. And the fourth is listening with your soul, which is another one entirely. Listening with your soul.
Oh my gosh, I should add this to my communication trainings.
It is a beautiful thing, right? So
how do I do that?
We'll get to that. So the point I'm trying to make here is that, so these are three types of listening. Curiosity is the first one. The second one is humility. So it's like, well, I get it. Had I gone through what they experienced, the way that they experienced it, with those around them guiding them, and the ideologies of those people that they held as being their most closest and nearest and dearest, I think I'll be exactly the same, or I would share a similar viewpoint, or I would be further down the road than what their viewpoint is right now. That's humility. And the third part is empathy. So being curious, having humility leads to empathy, which is saying, well, I understand them. I don't necessarily share their viewpoint, but I understand from their point of view why they believe so strongly what they believe. Now, when I'm at that place and I can come around to, you know what? I think they've got a point. From their belief system, from their way of seeing it, they've got a point. If I can get to that place, you and I can now have a conversation about it slowly. But we can have a conversation about it because there's some mutual respect now. Whereas before there wasn't. There was a sense of me saying, well, I'm right, you're wrong. Where's the respect in that? There isn't much. So by putting that into place now, we have an opportunity to cross-pollinate. We have an opportunity for combinatory creativity, for people to come together across silos, across nations, across countries, across opinions, facts that we believe to be real. right? And this to me is probably one of the most important keys. Now, again, just to stipulate, it doesn't mean that it's all kumbaya and it's like, you know what, I do this to everybody I have an opposing viewpoint to. No. Start with the ones which maybe you're having a business meeting. Maybe you want to explore something with these. Start there. Maybe it's your brother and you're estranged from your family member. Start there. So start wherever it's comfortable and slightly uncomfortable for you.
Yeah.
Right? It's not about, I do this the whole time, because I don't.
Yeah.
But what it does is that, so when you have an interaction with someone and you're left pissed off, upset, as I was at the age of 12, after that racist attack, and I felt humiliated and all the rest of that, I wanted revenge, it's me carrying this around, no one else. So who's suffering?
Me.
Me.
If I'm angry at you, it's not your fault. It's me. You're a mirror.
So by going through this process, at least gives you a way to let this stuff go.
Yeah.
Right? It's like you're at you're in a car, there's a level crossing.
Yeah.
The train comes along. Now, the train is your emotion, taking you to the place of downward spiral. That's where it's heading. You're in the car, you're now in witness, right? So you can make two choices. I love threes, as you know, but you can make two decisions. Do I get on the train or not?
Yeah.
If I get on the train, I know where it's going. I've been there so many times before.
Exactly.
I get on, downward spiral, there I go again, right? And I come out the other side, wherever that might be.
Yeah.
Or I can just focus on my breath for 20 seconds, 25 seconds. In, out, 20 seconds. By the time I'm that, the train's already gone.
Clear-headed, balanced.
Boom. So like things like this really, really help. Because again, it's most of the time it's about forgiving yourself, and doesn't mean you give yourself like an easy. You should have done that thing. It's the third time you made the same mistake. Kick your own ass. Yes. Do it, right? But what I'm saying is that, it's not a way to let yourself off the hook. I'm not saying that. It's a way to take responsibility. When you say those three things, right? What happened? You know what I mean? What did I learn from this? What or which quality is trying to be cultivated out of this experience, right? And then even the third one, take action. If this should happen again, what would I do differently? Because life is there trying to give you these experiences, trying to up-level you to U.0, right? So you will encounter that thing again.
And it's so interesting. You mentioned so many of these concepts where I also have this positive intelligence program coming from the US, also taught at Stanford, where exactly these things, these concepts, we teach people and especially business practitioners to use this more in their daily life, but also at work. Wow, I think we've been speaking for a long time. And to be honest, I don't even want to stop. I've learned so much. I can't even summarize everything. But I'd love to have a short, what would be you've summarized a couple of concepts and the Indonesian philosophy and conscious business before, but what would be your last message to our audience? Because a lot of people here are coming from the Western world, we have from students to entrepreneurs to different managers, everything to corporate. What would be a message that people, and some of them may have never been to Bali before, right? We also have people from Asian countries here. What would be the last message you want to give them on their path now, out of the many, many teachings? I think I probably have to listen to this podcast at least 10 more times.
Me so too. You also learn from hearing yourself. All right. So, okay. So maybe the first thing, which is more straightforward. So if you go to YouTube and SpeakuP, one word, SpeakuP, separate word, Monday, SpeakuP Monday, you'll get to the YouTube channel. Now that YouTube channel is more of a SpeakuP in the playlist, SpeakuP Monday. It's more of a library, right? As opposed to, either, because we get more views on Instagram and that's more, but YouTube is there to keep the library copy of the last 280 something videos.
Wow.
Last 280 episodes. So there is a really good place for you to go because, it's SpeakuP Monday. Destination Indonesia. That's the full name. So, it is an impeccable way to find out what people are doing here in Bali, from all different walks of life, Indonesian, foreigner, expat, like what are people doing there from 10 different market sectors, right? So by looking at that, you really get the understanding of Bali through the eyes of those people who either live here, traveled here, or stay here for some period of time. So that's a really good resource to help you kind of find your way, because one of the reasons why I did it is because, well, this was along the journey, right? Why I kept on doing it is that I use media. I use social media. I don't really read it too much. I kind of post and dash, right? But I use social media. I'm part of social media. And we all know about algorithms by now and all the rest of that. What happens is that most of the time, the things which are the most clickbait are the ones that get pushed. Yes. So for many people here, Bali, you may have heard of, yes. If you have sex with someone who's not your partner, you can get put in jail. Not true, but was put out there. You can't come to Bali unless you can't rent a scooter in Bali. You have to have a bike. Incorrect. So there's so many of these clickbait headlines that go on, not just about Bali, but all over the world. Yeah. So for me, I would rather hear it from the horse's mouth. Right?
Exactly.
I would rather hear it from a person who is there talking right now in live without having to have, like an agenda per se. Look, everyone's got an agenda to a certain extent, but I'm not talking about, fabricated to follow a narrative. I'm talking about people which are actually here. And we have an hour and a half with me, just like an hour and a half with you. Thank you very much. You're welcome, my darling. It's very difficult to hide. So one way or another, you will find out who that person is, because it will come out, right? And so by seeing that, it allows you to kind of have your opinion on whether this person is being real or not. And we know when people are being authentic and when they're not, because you feel it. Right? So when you look at these 280 plus interviews from different market sectors, leaders, innovators, disruptors and so on, you will know and you will feel that they're telling you the truth. But it will give you a very direct inference of what's happening in Bali. So that's number one. Number two, what else? Of the philosophies that I've spoken about, everywhere has something, nowhere has everything, right? This is what someone told me years ago about traveling around the world and me asking them, where's their favorite place? And that's what they said. They said, Rob, I have many favorite places, but understand this, everywhere has something, but nowhere has everything.
Wow.
Right? So when it comes to that,
everything has something, but nowhere has everything.
Yes. So when you think about it, let's say, I'm traveling around the world, right? I come to Bali. What does it have? It has culture, mysticism, people from all over the world, energy that's unrivaled. My nervous system relaxes here, so then my body can begin to self-heal from all the different toxins that I've put in it from somewhere else. This doesn't happen in London, Singapore,
China.
It doesn't happen. You build up the toxins there. Here they come to a release. So that's what Bali gives me. But what Bali doesn't give me right now, for example, is incredible infrastructure or X, Y, and Z. So again, Bali has something, but not everything.
Yes.
And everywhere is the same. I go to Sydney. What does it have? Incredible infrastructure. It has this, and this. What doesn't it have? Maybe some of the things I spoke about with Bali.
Yeah.
Right? Doesn't quite have that. But that's okay. So everywhere has something, but nowhere has everything.
Maybe that's why we should live in two different places. Like some people, half a year here, half a year there.
Right. That's right. And then, so then knowing that, those three, they're not only philosophies, they're it's a way of life. The lady last night was saying, philosophies, are only important if they're imbibed, right? If they're brought into the conscious. These, which I should have said last night, these are conscious. Like it's not just something that people talk about, it's something that people live, right? So again, let's start from Bhinneka Tunggal Ika. Unity and diversity is the motto of Indonesia.
Yeah.
I'm from the UK. I'm proud to be a British person. If I look at mottos, forget the country. Britain is, God save the king now. America, land of the home. Was it home of the? I should get this right, shouldn't I? Home of the brave, land of the free. Something like that.
Yeah.
Indonesia, unity and diversity. If I didn't know the countries, and I asked someone, all right, going forward into the future, which one of these three do you feel is most important to be cultivated going forward?
Resonate with.
And look, where I'm from, people say, well, this unity and diversity, I think, has a future because with things being so separated, we need to come together.
Yeah.
Right? So that is the one. So that underpins the nation. Right? So it's like the DNA that doesn't come through all the time and everything, but it's there. And the more it goes on, the more it comes through. We spoke about Gotong Royong, the community coming together to solve a challenge facing the community. With Bali Ocean Days, the community is an international community, right? Because the ocean is something which is connected to all of us, right? It's an ecosystem that we are not separate from. It is part of us, right? So that one. So, and then the third one, Tri Hita Karana. 3 ways to prosperity, 3 ways to harmony. About, wherever you are in the world, think about what is your impact. And again, I am not perfect, people. So when I say this, I'm sure that I'm not following this in all areas as well, right? Mastery, right?
That's why it's also good we speak about it. It's, for us, even, it's a reminder. Oh, yeah.
That's right.
That's what I want to incorporate more.
That's precisely. So then, how does, let's talk about business. How does my business project or initiative impact human to God, culture, customs, tradition, religion? Give yourself a score honestly out of 10, right? Is it 4? Is it 5? Is it 2? Is it 3? Is it 9? Right? Whatever it is. Wherever you start is not where you have to finish.
Yeah.
This one, human to the environment, right? So regenerative systems, policies, practices. How does it look after the environment or not? Where can it be improved?
And we don't have to be an entrepreneur in order to follow these kind of principles. There's a way how you can inspire to do this with your colleagues, your boss, incorporate it in a company culture, even if you're not a manager. Like, don't make an excuse. There's always a way how you can follow this, incorporate it, and do something bigger, better for your community. Or like as a volunteer, in your free time, etc.
That's right. And then the final one is human to human prosperity. So how does it create abundance for you and others? You and others, right? Again, so those 3 things. So these will be the 3 things that I'll leave you with. And I think that gives people a good insight, into this nation of almost 300 million people, 17,000 plus islands, 700 plus cultures, 500 plus languages, where the average age is 27.
Wow. Thank you so much, Rob. I've learned so much. You make me think a lot right now, but I also feel super relaxed. I love your energy. I love what you're doing. Please keep it up.
Thank you.
I look forward to our next encounter. Guys, if you loved today's session with Robert Ian Bonnick, here he is in Bali. You can join his events live. You can join it and listen to it online. Check out in the comments. We have all of his social media and where you can follow him and get in touch with him. And if you loved today's episode, sharing is caring. Send it to your friends, to your colleagues. I believe in the butterfly effect, right? So take care, guys, and see you for the next episode. Greetings from Bali.
Thank you. Welcome to Bali. See you in Bali sometime soon.